Greetings, friends. Welcome to another one of our free Friday community classes. We do these every Friday right here on the YouTube, covering a variety of topics related to plant spirit work, wart cunning, plant lore, spiritual herbalism, green magic, all the fun stuff. I'm assuming because you're here, you're into all of that, so welcome. If you are new to the channel, please take a moment to subscribe. Let me know you're there. Also, you'll get all the updates when new videos come out so you don't miss anything. This week, we're doing something we haven't done in just a little while, a little bit more of an informal chat rather than a structured class. And I want to talk about plant spirit work and spiritual traditions. I've gotten a few questions about this from folks, and this is something that in my own experience, my own spiritual journey, I've navigated over the last 25 years or so. And I think that it deserves its own discussion, even though it's definitely been brought up in other classes before. So the questions that come up, and sometimes even the concern and the anxiety that comes up from folks is, I'm already doing a spiritual practice. I'm already part of a spiritual tradition, generally of the more pagan-y bent, as folks, want to be when they're interested in this type of thing. But there are folks that are coming out of Sufism that I've talked to. There are folks coming out of Orthodox Christianity that I've talked to. So it's definitely not limited to the pagan world by any means, but that does seem to be the common. So I'm already engaged in a spiritual tradition. I'm already part of a religion or a path or a tradition or a grove or a coven or whatever, but I feel really called to work with the plant spirits in a more direct way, in a more sorcerous way, in a more cunning way. And that's great. This is a question that I love, but where folks will get tripped up, where I've been tripped up before, is it almost feels like now you have to put on two hats, right? You're like, which hat am I wearing now? Am I wearing the plant nerd hat or the Asatruer hat? Am I wearing the plant nerd hat or the Gnostic Christian hat, right? And I think that juggling two hats doesn't leave a free hand to hold a cup of tea. So I don't think it's that good. So what I want to talk to you about today, and hopefully talk with you, because I hope that folks will share their experiences and their thoughts on this in the comments below, is how to do both. How to be engaged wholeheartedly with an existing spiritual tradition, but open up the floodgates to work with the plant spirits. Now, for folks engaged in pagan practices, and when I say pagan practice, here's what I mean. Pagan practice is not monotheistic. It is animistic by nature, and any iteration of those two things put together, however that may manifest. And most importantly, to me, paganism is world affirming, not world denying. So pagan traditions are about leaning further into nature, leaning further into the reality of world, rather than seeing it as illusory or a trap or a test or a punishment, as some other non-pagan spiritual traditions do. So folks who are engaged in pagan traditions generally don't have as much work to do as other folks, because our traditions are based on nature, and there is often no better face of nature than the plants. In fact, every pagan tradition that I've had the pleasure of studying or attending as a guest, as a ritual or whatever, there has been some aspect of plant lore that's made its way into the ritual, into the story, into the working, into talking about a patron deity or a particular legend or lore, right? So it's not a far stretch. What we have to do is figure out how to be engaged in whatever pagan path we're walking, whatever specific tradition or specific expression of that, and let our work with the plant spirits come into full fruition, right? And the way that I like to encourage folks to do that is by looking for the extant plant lore in the tradition that you follow. So for example, if you are an Obadi or an ADFer, let's say that you are practicing neo-pagan druidry of the Obad or ADF variety, or one of the other ones, British Druid Order or whatever, you will have no problem finding Druidic lore that is wrapped up in plant work, that is wrapped up in plant mysteries, and it goes far beyond the oak and mistletoe stuff that everybody knows, right? That's all there. If you are working a tradition of Anglo-Saxon heathenry, or Asatru, or Vanatru, or Norse paganism, or Norse animism, again, all you have to do is come in to the Eddas, or come into any of the stories that have been handed down with the angle of looking for plant lore, and you will find it. And then there's now an invitation for you to go deeper. Speaking of the Anglo-Saxon paganism, for example, so many of the deities, have an animal they're associated with, places they're associated with, but also plants and trees they're associated with. So if you happen to be a devotee of a particular deity, then there's already a connection there to that deity's relationship to a plant. So you, in relationship to deity, in relationship to plant, creates this triad of power, and there's an invitation. Pretty much all of the pagan sorceress arts, in one way or another, call on plants. I can't think of a charm or a spell that I've seen in any of these traditions where at least some of them aren't plant reliant, right? You've got to harvest this plant to do this charm, or you need this particular herb or fruit to do this spell, and they're old, right? So these relationships with the plants are timeless, and we've been doing it for a long time. So pagan folk, a little bit easier time because we have plant lore wrapped up in our general earth-based world-affirming lore, animistic lore. Non-pagan folk, the Christians, the Muslims, to some degree, Jewish folk, you have just as easy of a time. I think you thought I was going to say, you got to work harder. No. In fact, same story for you. I just had to build up a little drama. Throughout the Bible, throughout the Torah, throughout the Quran, throughout the Hadith, right? You will find references to plants over and over and over again. This plant was used for this. This plant was sacred for this. This plant was called in for this. People have gone out of their way, not to say they burned a particular herb to do a particular thing. No. They've described it. They've used the name of the plant. They've gone out of their way to preserve that information. Why? Because it's important. So, the boil down here, the too long didn't watch, the 30-second video I could have made but didn't because I love a tangent, is it doesn't matter what existing spiritual tradition you follow, what spiritual path you walk. I guarantee if you just approach what you're already doing with an eye for looking for the plant lore, look for how plants come up, look for mentions of trees and specific fruits and specific colors, specific times of year, planting and harvesting rituals, all of that, you will have no shortage of inspirational ways that you can bring plant spirit work more fully into the practice of whatever it is that you're already doing, whether it's through symbolism or through the literal application of specific plants, specific trees to deepen your spiritual practice by bringing them into your work as incense or as sacred tools or as accoutrement to your altar. Whatever it is, the invitation is there. Plant lore is pervasive. There is no spiritual fabric in this world of ours since time immemorial across every land where the threads are not plant dyed, right? So this is not hard work. I think what happens is people get hung up on, thinking that plant spirit work has to be its own insular tradition in order for it to work. And in reality, it doesn't. The plants are supportive and multi-dimensional and giving in such a way that even when we just bring them into our work with a deity or with our ancestors or with particular acts of ritual magic, that is enough to foster relationship. Just by asking them to be present, to support our work, to deepen the work that we're already doing, this is an invocation the plants readily respond to time and time again. So look for the trees, the plants, the herbs, the flowers, the stories in your spiritual tradition, and consider how you can bring the plants into what you're already doing to deepen what you're already doing. See the plants as allies, as initiators, as mystery keepers that can be brought into your work to take things to a new level. If this is new to you, I'm curious what you're thinking. Share with me in the comments below. If you already will say path blend, right? That you do plant spirit work as part of a spiritual tradition that you follow, I would love to hear more about that. Send some comments, send me a DM, let me know. If you want to stay in touch with our weekly classes, our advanced classes, courses, Q&As, and vlogs, come hang out with us over on the Patreon to support my work and to join a vibrant community of very cool people who are talking about plant spirit work, spiritual herbalism, wort cunning, plant lore, all this good stuff. And I look forward to seeing you next time.